So before we get into this video, if you guys want to check out my feature film Pesadilla, you can. It's officially on Amazon right now. You can also check out the physical media release coming soon. You can also check out my link tree, all my socials, short films, stuff like that. I'm going to talk about Luca Guadagnino's Queer. Now, I want to just first off go ahead and say I really love this movie. I thought it was great, which is usually something I don't come out and say. I like to talk about the film just a little bit before I actually get into my actual opinions, but I was so hypnotized by the film, and Luca Guadagnino is one of my favorite directors working today. I mean, he is up there in my top 5, maybe even my top 3. It seems like when he makes a film, and this is a very strange thing to say, but he doesn't write his own scripts. He usually adapts. And a lot of directors have their own certain style where you can watch a film, like say for instance, 1 director, 2 directors, 3 directors might adapt something, even if it is another script, but they have their own visual style where you can almost tell that it was made by them. With Luca Guadagnino, besides the typical aspect ratio he usually works in, which is 185:1, you can't, which is what a lot of films are made in, you can't really tell just by looking at a film that it is one of his movies. But at the same time, he has this sort of flair. I can't really explain it, but it's almost like he sacrifices a personal vision to sort of bring what the story actually needs. And that's something that I really admire, because if you look at each one of his films, they are pretty different. I mean, if you look at Queer and Challengers, I mean, both that they came out this year, they look like completely different films, but it seems like he's the definition of a really good director, because he does what seems to be the best thing for the story. I wanted to get that out of the way because I can go on about it for honestly a while if I wanted to. But the film stars Daniel Craig and Drew Starkey. It's based off of a novel of the same name, which I have not had a chance to read. One of my friends had a chance to read it. It also has Jason Schwartzman in it. He has a small role, but he's in the film. And the official synopsis is: Lee recounts his life in Mexico City among American students. He pursues a young man named Allerton, a U.S. Navy serviceman recently discharged from Jacksonville, Florida. Again, I never had a chance to read the novel, but essentially what you have is you have Daniel Craig, who is this man who is living in Mexico City. He drinks a lot. He's very much so a part of the nightlife, and he stumbles upon this young man, and they end up developing this relationship. Now, their relationship sends them on a journey, which I won't get into any spoilers, but the film is separated into 3 chapters, and the 3rd chapter is by far the strangest chapter, which I'll get into in a second. But apparently this film had almost an hour cut from it. The film itself is 2 hours and 15 minutes long, but I heard that the original cut was a lot longer. Luca Guadagnino trimmed it down, and apparently this is his final cut. So I don't think we'll get a director's cut, but this is one of those films where, knowing that information, sometimes when you hear about a film being cut, you don't really know what was cut, you just know that it was. But with this film, you can definitely tell it was missing some things, which I'm not going to say was for better or for worse. You can just kind of tell, like chapter 1 and chapter 3 are considerably longer than the 2nd chapter. I mean, this film even has an epilogue, and I would say that it's probably the same length as the 2nd chapter. So you can tell that the film is missing stuff. Now, in context, it might not be a bad thing, because I feel like the film itself was pretty well paced. It seemed to kind of fly by. Like, Luca Guadagnino is known for his films that they seem like they trim out the fat, but at the same time they are long. They do feel long, and again, that's not a bad thing. When I think of something like that, I think of Bones and All, which Bones and All felt a lot longer than its actual runtime, but yet I still enjoyed it. There are some films that are like that. And then you think of a film like The Brutalist that just recently came out, that's 3.5 hours. It feels a lot shorter than its runtime. So again, this is Luca Guadagnino doing, I think, what's best for his film, and I just can't help but appreciate that. Because I think if he wanted to, he probably could have made this a 2.5 hour long film. He could have made this a 2 hour and 45 minute long film. He could have made this a 3 hour long film. I mean, I genuinely think he probably could have done that if he really wanted to. I just don't think he wanted to. And again, I don't mean to speak for him, but just given what I've heard about the film so far. This is also the second film that he's released this year, which I think is very impressive. The fact that he has two really good films coming out in the same year is just a testament to his filmmaking capabilities. I'm already upset that he's not getting a nomination for Best Director. I mean, as far as I know, we'll just have to see. But and Daniel Craig, I mean, he's probably going to get an Oscar nomination for this. Probably won't win, but I mean, Daniel Craig was phenomenal in this. Drew Starkey was also great as well. The performances were fine, but the one thing that really did sort of, and again, when I say fine, I'm not saying, oh, well, they were fine. No, they were good. They were really good. But the thing about it is, the one thing about this film that really stood out to me was the cinematography and sort of the visual storytelling that sort of led the film and sort of led the narrative. Because this film, at times, it looks standard. It always looks flashy, but it takes a very standard approach. And then when it goes from, like, I don't know, maybe say 5, it goes straight up to 11. I mean, there were some moments in this film that reminded me of straight up David Lynch, if I'm being completely honest, especially towards the end. And that third chapter, which there are some people that, they've had an issue with sort of the tonal shift of the film, because the film does go from this contained thing to them going in the jungle in South America looking for this drug, and whenever they find it, it gets really, really crazy. It's a huge tonal shift. But for me, I liked it. It worked. And there was a specific point in the film where I realized I was kind of just hypnotized. I mean, I just was into the story. I wasn't really aware of my surroundings, and I just was in it to win it. I was in it to win it. The film also does some really cool things with miniatures. Again, it's Luca Guadagnino. His style just changes throughout each film. He's kind of like a chameleon in a way, like he doesn't necessarily, in a way, he does reuse some assets in terms of what I guess is going on in his head. But like I said, if you look at this film and Challengers, they're two completely different films. I do think I like Challengers better than Queer, but I do like Queer better than Bones and All, I suppose. But if Luca Guadagnino ranked for me personally, Challengers is my favorite film that he's done, and then Suspiria, and then Queer, and then maybe Bones and All, I'm not exactly sure, and then Call Me By Your Name, maybe Call Me By Your Name and Bones and All switched around, I don't know, but you should definitely seek out Queer if you can find it. I'm surprised it's not getting a wider release, because I just am, and I hate the mixed reviews that this film is getting, because I do feel like there is a certain discourse when it comes to this film, and I think it's completely unwarranted. You get what I'm saying. But I do like the film, and you should definitely seek it out. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a thumbs up, maybe subscribe. Let me know what your favorite Luca Guadagnino film is down in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.